Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. Again, I'd like to thank our sponsors for the guest speakers, North American Composites, Intersect, and Layered Plastics. They made this all possible, and I am so excited to introduce our next guest speaker, Sean Michael Johnson, a partner and leads a product development and growth at Digital Intent, a firm that conceives, builds, grows new digital startups. He's helped companies like Groupon, HarperCollins, and more to create innovative digital businesses and help them grow. His experience is in product development, user experience, and user acquisition. He teaches digital marketing in the Innovation and Entrepreneurship Group at Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management. Please, a big round of applause as he comes to the stage, Sean Michael Johnson.
Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate being here. First time in Vancouver, actually, so got to learn what all the rain was about. Really excited to be here. I know I saw the previous speaker mention that you've been drinking from a fire hose all morning. I apologize in advance. My MO is to pack my content with a lot of material. I hate coming home from a conference and trying to process my notes and saying I wrote down 3 things. So I want to maximize the value provided per minute that we're here. So I think I've got about an hour. We have about 114 slides to get through. So we probably should have 10 or 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. As he mentioned, my name is Sean. I'm a partner at Digital Intent. We create new products and bring them to market for enterprise companies. I'm also actually a partner at Founder Equity, which is a early stage venture fund in Chicago, about a $30 million fund. We've made 10 investments in fund number 1. And I have a couple of different roles in those organizations. I manage product development, but more importantly, for our talk today, I manage the folks that do digital marketing on behalf of our clients. I also recruit our CMOs for fund companies and provide advice to them on how to kind of build their digital marketing engines. And then I teach at digital marketing at Kellogg as well, teaching them the same thing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is going to be our goal, to build a machine that can predictably drive more traffic to your site. And I want to caveat in advance, we're going to get a little bit in the weeds, and some of you might be asking, why are we doing that? I'm not the person that's going to be executing on this. And my approach, and you talked about hiring, A players and how important that is, especially in startup land when we're recruiting people. The difference in a good CMO versus a bad CMO at that stage of the game is literally the difference between life and death for them. And so we have to get very, very good at hiring those people, and having good kind of BS detectors, I think, is really important. And so for folks that are here that are going to be implementing, hopefully you'll find a lot of value here. For folks that aren't going to be implementing, but manage those people or need to hire those people, my hope here is that you'll be able to tell the difference, because anybody can read a Social Media for Dummies book or SEO or whatever and call themselves a social media consultant. There are a lot of people that don't actually know what they're doing. And so my hope is that you'll at the minimum be able to tell the difference in a few minutes. So we're building a machine. What does the machine look like? There's 5 components to it. We're going to start with creating relevant content that's relevant to our buyer or buyers. We're going to optimize that content to make sure that it ranks for organic search. We're going to create mechanisms to build a relationship and develop permission with them so we can build trust with them over time. And we're going to amplify that content with social. And then for folks that are further down in the funnel, we're going to capture that traffic as well through paid and convert those people. And this is an engine that, in my opinion, works across a wide variety of companies. It's an engine that works well for us in our consulting business, where we sell literally 7-figure projects. It works for one of our fund companies, which is a meal delivery company in the Midwest, to drive sales of $10 meals. It's even worked for companies like US Cellular that built a mobile app that had an ad-based revenue model. So it's very, very, I think, broad in its application, and I think it can definitely work for you all selling relatively high price point items, sometimes online, very often in store. I think this model still works for you. So this is what we're going to try to build over the next hour. Starting with content. Why do we start with content? I think there's a couple of reasons. And it sounds a little bit counterintuitive to people. Their inclination is, let's start by spinning up ads or something like that. But the reason why we start with content is its applicability. It is, in my opinion, the most sustainable strategy from an organic search perspective. SEO is a game that changes all the time. Google figures out loopholes that people are taking advantage of and tries to close them. But the one strategy that has always worked and will always work is creating useful, relevant content to your buyer. Number two, it gives you something to say with social. When people talk about their social media strategy, they don't necessarily know what to say or how to do it or whatever. Part of the problem is they don't have enough content to kind of drive people to. Three, gives you a tool to nurture leads. Most of the people that are going to come in at the top of your funnel aren't necessarily ready to buy, so we want to have tools to kind of push them down the funnel and get them to consider it and then get ready to kind of to choose why you. And then all of that leads up to building trust and affinity. Every single piece of content that you create is going to sort of consciously or subconsciously build trust in your brand. So even if I'm not necessarily ready to buy right away, when I am ready to buy, you're going to be the one that I think of. There's three main things I try to advocate to our companies when we're thinking about our content strategy. The first is to create a meta-narrative. What do I mean by a meta-narrative? It means understanding who my buyer is and trying to create a narrative that that my product will be a part of helping fulfill, but is not that is broader than just my product. And the reason why that is if all I'm talking about is I have hot tubs for sale, I have hot tubs for sale, I have hot tubs for sale. You're going to run out of ideas for content really quickly. People are not going to want to necessarily build a relationship with you over time. But if you can broaden that a little bit and become their trusted advisor for something that's maybe a little bit larger than that, but encompasses what you do, it can be really, really powerful. So it starts with understanding who your customer is. And what we advocate is creating a persona, trying to get as specific as possible as who they are. A persona is a fictional representation of who your buyer would be. So we give them a name, we give them their demographics, we talk about their pain points, we talk about what technology they use, what websites they visit, what their goals and hopes and dreams and aspirations are. We try to make that as concrete and visible as possible, and we use that as the frame through which we're going to do everything else. We're going to ask ourselves, would Mary click on this? Would Mary read this? Would Mary share this, right? What if you have multiple buyers? You can create one for each, and when we get into social a little bit, you can actually tell multiple stories to multiple different people very effectively using some of the tactics we'll talk about when we get to social. But you create a meta-narrative, and the easiest way to do it is to answer the question, I want to, from the perspective of your customer. What is your customer wanting to do? So for the example, Zendesk is basically user support, it's help desk software. And their content strategy was very, very effective in driving the majority of their new signups. And their meta-narrative was, I want to build a company my customers love. So, meaning I, as somebody who would use help desk software, I'm using this help desk software to accomplish a broader goal of being the kind of company that is responsive and helpful to my customers and make it a company that they love. Glossier is an e-commerce company that sells beauty products for women. Their strategy was entirely content and social based as well. Spent almost nothing on paid for their first couple of years. And their meta-narrative was, I want to be authentically beautiful. So it wasn't just, I want makeup, it was something a little bit broader. So I don't know what your version is of that. It could be something like, I want to live a healthier life. It could be something like, I want to learn how to recover better if I'm an athlete or something along those lines. I don't know what it is. You guys will know much better than I would. But I would ask you to try to think about what that might be. And again, just have it be a little bit larger than just hot tubs. Where does hot tubs fit kind of in the context of my life? What is the job that I'm hiring a hot tub to accomplish? Is another way of thinking about it. Once we've identified what that meta-narrative is, we want to create content across the entire buyer journey. And there's a couple strategies that you can do for this. One is just take your team out for drinks or pizza or whatever and brainstorm ideas. Think about all the different things that I might want to do as it relates to a hot tub, what I might be using it for, when I would be using it during my day, how does it fit into my life. Another really useful exercise that we do is called the day in the life journey. And we try to figure out where are the points where a particular product might intersect with that, or where it could, where it currently isn't. You can use other tools as well. I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but when you type in a search query into Google, scroll down to the bottom, they give you similar, it's called Google Suggest. They give you searches that are related to the search that you typed in. This can be a gold mine for finding other ideas or subtopics within an existing idea to really flesh out what it is that you're doing. And then we're big fans of using some of the tools that Google provides. Google, on their AdWords side, has a tool called Keyword Planner, where if you type in a search query, it'll spit back the query, a bunch of related queries that you didn't type in, along with their search volume each month, right? The level of competition, that's from a paid perspective because it's a paid tool, but that still can be useful for you, your cost per click, all that kind of stuff. From an organic perspective, we're primarily paying attention to the monthly search volume, but that'll tell us. If I'm going to go to the effort of writing this content, I probably want content that people are actually searching for, right? So after you've done your brainstorming, after you've gone through Google Suggest, some of these other tools, you can plug it into here, and you can see how many people are searching for this, and that'll give you a really good sort of proxy. It's half of the story in terms of which phrases you should be prioritizing. The other half we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. There are other tools that you can use that are paid tools, like SEMrush and things like that, that provide a little bit more detail. Honestly, this tool is free to anybody that has an AdWords account. You don't even have to be running ads yet, so I would definitely try to leverage this to get started. But, and you'd be surprised, when we talk to content marketers, this is one of the first questions I ask, is how do you decide which articles to write and which ones not to write? And often they're good at understanding from a brand perspective, understanding who their buyer is, and brainstorming topics. What they don't often do is do this extra step of figuring out are people actually searching for it. And again, we want to make sure that we map it through that entire funnel. Not all of the content is going to be sales transactional based content. In fact, most of your content is probably not going to be sales transactional based content. Some of it will. And you want to have content that's going to reflect this entire funnel, but it's shaped this way for a reason. And if you think about the searches that you look for on websites like Google most often, if you think about the articles and content that people share on social most often, it is usually informational type content. It is usually the answer to a question, how to blank, or something like that, right? And so you want to start up there, you want to get on people's radar, and then you want to get, like I said, permission to kind of nurture that relationship over time. You still will be creating content on the lower stages of the funnel, and you definitely want to have that stuff, the steps that we're going to talk about later, but you want to make sure that you're also including the informational content kind of at the top of the funnel. And in fact, I would probably spend 80% of my time there. And the reason is, you can create a relatively small amount of content at the bottom of the funnel to convert these people, right? You can have them kind of flow into a pretty consistent path. But at the top of the funnel, that's going to be where you're going to get all of the organic search traffic. That's going to be where you're going to get all the social traffic. So take every item that you brainstormed, once you run it through the volume kind of test, map it to which stage of the funnel it is that you're trying to kind of focus on. And then last point, content just doesn't mean articles. In fact, it shouldn't mean articles, just articles. One of the things that we advocate often is, if you're going to go to the effort of writing a piece of content, you should think about how you can apply it in as many different ways as possible. What I mean by that is, one article could also be a slide deck that you can post on SlideShare. That might not be super relevant to you, but SlideShare ranks really well for Google. So you can turn it into a video, you can turn it into an audio, you can take pieces of it and turn them into a dozen or more snippets on social media that you can share. So you want to figure out how to chunk up a particular article and leverage it in as many different ways as you possibly can. If I wrote an article of 11 ways to blank, each one of those 11 things could be answers on a site like Quora, for example, where people are asking Q&A, and they're very good at SEO too, right? So think about how you can get as much mileage as possible out of every single piece of content that you're creating. And we're going to talk, it's going to come up a couple of times today. This isn't scrolling. How do I do this? Did I turn it off? Oh, it's off. That's fine. Okay.
All right.
I don't know if we want to just say advance. There we go. We're going to talk about it several times today, but video, I think in particular in 2019, is going to be your best delivery mechanism outside of articles. And there are going to be some tools we're going to talk about a little bit later that can help you actually create that really easily. In my opinion, it's actually easier to create video than it is to create content. That sounds a little bit counterintuitive to people. They get nervous because they don't want to be on screen or whatever. But if you can overcome that fear, or if you can find someone on your team that does not mind being on a camera, creating video content is actually really, really easy. And there's tools that will allow you to create transitions and things like that really, really easily. So I would recommend, if you're going to go into one area other than articles, video would be where I would make the biggest investment. So those are our three from a content perspective. Create our meta-narrative, create content across the entire buyer journey, and think broader than just content, than just articles. Next slide. So the second step, once we've created all this content, is to, next slide please, is to optimize that content for search. Next slide. And one thing that you need to keep in mind when you're talking about search and why people get really discouraged is that it takes some time. And the reason why that is there are two kind of mechanisms that Google uses to determine what ranks and what doesn't rank. One is the content itself. So are you showing up for the keywords that you want to be showing up for? And then two, the links that are coming into you. So in other words, what Google's big insight was what other people say about you is more important than what you say about yourself. So the way that they determine the priority and the ranking for different phrases is the number of inbound sites that link to you and the authority of those sites that are linking to you. That is generally how they determine things. It gets a little bit more nuanced for reasons we'll talk about in a second, but generally speaking, that's the formula. And the problem is when you're just getting started with this process, Google, you haven't developed enough trust with Google yet. And that's something that we're going to work on, but that's usually why it takes some time to show up. And this is something that, an objection that comes up all the time when I'm talking with startup clients or startups in our fund, is I've got 18 months of runway, should I be making this investment? It's not showing up. But time and time again, usually around the 6-month mark is when they start to see increasing results with it. And the great thing about organic is, while it takes time to get going, it's a little bit like a snowball. Once you can start ranking for these terms, it becomes easier to rank for future terms. The terms that you're going to show up for rank today and tomorrow and the next month and the month after that. Google does make algorithm updates, but generally speaking, if you created good content, you're going to stay up there. And so if you can do this work, it is your most sustainable, cheapest strategy for kind of long-term traffic generation to your site. So what does optimizing for search look like? Next slide. We got to keep in mind what Google's goal is. Google's goal is to show users the best result. And they've done a really good job of this, and they've trained us, for the most part, that if I type in a search query, search result 1, search result 2, or search result 3 are probably going to answer my question, right? So they've gotten pretty good at figuring out what it is that makes people click through and stick around. But what they are trying to avoid as much as possible is I type in a search query, I click on the first link, it doesn't do what I wanted to do, so I click on the second, click on the third, so on and so forth. So that manifests itself out in terms of click-through rates by position. If I'm in position 1 for a particular search query, on average, about 35% of people will click through to my piece of content. And then as you can see, it kind of drops precipitously from there. So what that tells us is if we're not in position 1 through, call it 3, it's almost as if we're invisible, right? So we want to focus on content and phrases that will allow us to get in those top 3 positions. And that's what I was saying earlier, that was the other piece of the puzzle. 1 is volume, but 2 is the level of competition. If a particular phrase that I'm going after with a piece of content is super, super competitive, with really established brands that have a lot of what we call domain authority, I'm not going to show up in the first page of results, and definitely not in the top 3. So I want to focus on that sweet spot of content that has a lot of volume but not a ton of competition. Does that make sense? So how do we do that? Well, Google's told us. These are the top 3 search ranking factors. I mentioned 2 of them already. One is the content that you're creating. The second is the links that are coming to that content. And the third is this nebulous thing called RankBrain, which is basically their AI. And we'll talk about how to manipulate that in a second. But these are our 3 kind of levers that we're going after here. So how do we make content that Google likes? Well, the fastest shorthand for doing this is to go for length. Google has figured out if I'm going to create the best possible version of an article, the length of that article is probably a really good proxy. And it makes sense. If you think about like the likelihood that you can answer my question in a way that is robust and detailed and knowledgeable in 300 words is really, really low. And so you start to see this really strong correlation between length of content and its position on the search results page. And in fact, even if you look on this, every result on page 1, on average, has more than 2,000 words to it. So if you hire an SEO consultant and they tell you that their strategy is going to be to crank out lots and lots of content that have 300 to 400 words each, which is what people used to do, that's a red flag. You're better off going for a smaller number of articles that are longer than a bunch of low quality articles that you can kind of crank out over time. Not only does length matter in terms of search engine position, it also matters on a couple of other variables as well. Those light blue bars on the left are the number of social shares. So the left axis is number of social shares. So articles that are between 3 and 10,000 words get an average of, call it 5,900 social shares, right? And it goes down precipitously from there. And then likewise on the right-hand axis and the dark blue bars, you've got the number of inbound links. So it goes from, call it 11 or so inbound links for longer articles down to 3. And inbound links, as we mentioned, matter because the more inbound links you get from reputable sources, the higher your domain authority is over time, and the more likely is you're going to be ranking higher up in the search engine results page. So, longer content means more social shares, more inbound links, higher position on the search engines page, and it's kind of a virtuous cycle. So length is the fastest, best way that you can take advantage of creating content that Google cares about. I showed you this slide earlier. If we're going to go, there's a high likelihood that a lot of these suggested topics could be sort of subsections of a larger topic. So just like you were using this to kind of come up with ideas, you could probably group these into one larger article. If I were creating the ultimate guide to blank, right? It probably has a bunch of different subsections in it. And again, Google is your friend and it's answering some of these questions for you. So you could look at this, plot it in the volume kind of tool, figure out which one you want to be your primary keyword, and then pick off these other ones secondarily as subsections within your page. It can help you kind of build your outline to kind of create your 2,000-word article. If you say, hey, I'm not a writer, hey, I don't have time to do this, there are tons of sites online. If you know anybody that has graduated with a liberal arts degree, you can know how hard life is for them right now. You can get 2,000-word articles that are very high quality for $50. So there's sites like Odesk, Upwork, ProBlogger, where you can go and find people with master's degrees. It's really depressing in one level, but for you, it's great. In terms of types of content too, just one other thing in terms of social shares and again, inbound links, your list post is going to be your best tool. There's a reason, there's something psychological about just hijacks our brain, 11 ways to blank. We can't help but click on it, right? So you see a really strong correlation with list posts and social shares, as well as inbound links. But notice again, number 2 here is actually video content. So if you're going to create 2 different types of content, go all in on list posts and video. One other reason for video. A lot of people don't realize this. The second largest search engine on the internet is not Bing, it is YouTube. And if there are phrases that you want to go after that are particularly competitive from a Google organic search perspective, they might be easier to go after from a video perspective because not as many people are creating video because again, they have this perception that it's really hard to do or really expensive or whatever it is when the camera on our iPhone is incredible. And so it's not as likely to be as optimized, but it uses a lot of the same strategies in terms of it being keyword based and all that kind of thing. So we create content Google likes, now we optimize that content for RankBrain. So I mentioned RankBrain is basically their AI, and what they kind of figured out was there was a time where if I wrote an article on the health benefits of using a hot tub, and then another one on hot tub health benefits, those would rank for those two different searches. Like Google was not smart enough to figure out that that was basically the same thing. They've sort of figured that out though. And so what they do now is if you type in a search into Google, they abstract those keywords into concepts, right? And so this is good news for us because it means we have less content to write and we can pick off more sort of tight variations of phrases. But the other thing that's really important is what happens afterwards. They're paying attention to the behavior of the user once you land on that search engine results page. So in other words, if I click on the link and I stay there for a long time, Google thinks that means that I like the content and it answered my question and it'll move me up in the rankings later on. Likewise, if they click on my link and they bounce back right away, or if they don't even click on my link at all, that tells Google that that content isn't that relevant to people and it starts to downrank it over time. So that means we have 2 variables to manipulate there. Click-through rate on the search results page, and then what they call dwell time. How much time do I actually spend once I land there? So a couple strategies for manipulating both. The first one for click-through rate. Make your URLs shorter. There's a strong correlation between keyword-rich, short URLs and click-through rate. Google will bold the URL inside of the search results page if it includes that keyword, or at least bold that part of the keyword. I don't know what your content management system is for your website, whether it's WordPress or Marketo or Shopify or whatever it is, but very high likelihood that changing your URL structure is really easy to do, and then changing what's called the slug for your URL, also really easy to do. So go for shorter URLs that have that keyword in them. Number 2, learn copywriting skills. Learn how to write compelling headlines. This is a really good example in my opinion. It was an article for Belly Fat. Notice how they got it in the title, they've got it in the URL, they've got it in the meta description, but they didn't just do what's called keyword stuffing, where it's just entirely optimized for a robot. They made sure that it was something that was compelling that you actually want to click on. One of the things that we advocate for our teams is to create what we call a swipe file. We give all of our fund companies our swipe file. It's basically, as you're just using the internet, if you click through on an article, learn to train yourself to interrupt yourself and ask yourself, why did I click through on that particular article? What was it about that headline that made me stop the little thumb thing that I'm doing, or my index finger, and actually click on that and add it to your swipe file? And I had to include the second one from the bottom there, so that was literally in our file. I didn't do that just for this, but again, notice lots of lists here, right? Lots of 28 ways to. Anecdotally, we've seen a stronger correlation or a stronger result with odd numbered lists versus even numbered lists. I don't know why. Something weird about our brains, but ultimate guide to, etc. Warning: are you eating this? Like creating curiosity and creating fear. Lots of different tactics that you can kind of leverage there. Over 283,000 websites used to grow traffic. Specificity makes people believe something more. We took an article about how to acquire users, and it was how I acquired over 1 million users, and then we changed the title after a test to how I acquired 1.638 million users, and that second one outperformed it just because I think it was more believable because we gave them the actual number. So create a swipe file. So there's a couple strategies in terms of increasing click-through rate. What about dwell time? How do I get people to stay on my page longer? One, and this sounds a little counterintuitive, get users' answers quickly. What that means is not a short article, but it means get to the point. So don't have this real long preamble, and don't make it hard for me to start getting value out of your content. Along those lines, having short paragraphs, literally 2-sentence paragraphs, which sounds, if any of you was an English major, you're upset with me, but I promise you those outperform, because what we want, that notion that people don't scroll is not true. What is true, though, is if you can make your content easily scannable, you'll get people to stick around. So short paragraphs, lots of subheaders, and again, we're writing this long article, which is really like 5 articles kind of crammed into one. Use lots of headings and subheadings. The other benefit of using headings is Google places more value on content that is inside of a heading than content that is inside of your body copy. So make sure all of your keywords are in your subheadings. Embed video, a tactic that we've used. So we take that list post, we repackage it as a video, right? We have an intro paragraph, we take that video, we embed it directly on the page. Some percentage of those people click on the video rather than wanting to read, and now we've increased our dwell time, right? Use lots of images to break it up, create visual interest, again, keeping it scannable. Same thing with pull quotes, and then consider adding comments. This is kind of a double-edged sword because not everybody wants to sit and monitor those comments, and as anybody probably knows, the comment sections of websites are not usually full of the highest quality people, but something to consider. And you can always delete ones that you think are inappropriate or whatever. The other thing to make sure that you keep in mind, 60% of searches are on mobile. Google actually, their index looks at the mobile version of your site when determining how to rank sites. So you want to make sure that your site is mobile friendly. Really easy tool, the mobile friendly tool can do that. You pop in the URL, it'll spit back whether it is mobile friendly or not. If it's not, it'll actually give you suggestions on how you can improve it and make it mobile friendly. Number 3, get links to increase your domain authority. So domain authority is sort of an abstraction that a company called Moz created that is sort of a really good proxy for the relative authority of a website. It's on a scale of 1 to 100, and it's logarithmic, meaning going from a domain authority of 10 to 20 is much, much easier than going from 70 to 80, right? So for you all, I think that a good target, and it'll take time to get there, but somewhere in the 40 to 50 range is probably where you're probably max out. But that would be a good target to try to go after. And Moz has some tools that allow you to see where you're at currently. So you type in a URL, it spits back your domain authority, it tells you how many domains are linking to you, it tells you what keywords you're ranking for. It's a really, really useful tool. And you can also do it for competitive research. If you wanted to look at your competitors and see how they're doing, you can type in their URL. That's going to be a common theme too coming up here is there's so many tools out there that allow you to sort of spy on your competitors. Take advantage of as many of them as you possibly can. They also have what's called a Moz toolbar. Moz toolbar, for any phrase on the Google search results page, you see that little gray box below each result. It tells you the page authority and domain authority for that site. So page authority is basically domain authority for that specific piece of content, right? So this is the other piece of the puzzle I mentioned earlier. When we're trying to figure out which content to prioritize, we've got volume on one hand and then we've got competition on the other. This is the fastest way to figure out the competition in terms of how hard will it be for me to rank in the top 3 results for this page. If they have a really high domain authority, probably pretty hard. The good news for you all in particular is it doesn't, from the searches that I was doing in preparation for this presentation, it doesn't seem like you have a lot of competitors who are really nailing this. And so these are, like this has, these results have domain authorities in the low 30s and 20s. A relatively modest amount of effort will get you to be in the top page and probably in the top 3 for these results. So, good opportunity for you all. How do you go about getting links, though? Getting links to your site can be hard, right? A couple strategies. This is a tool called the Link Intersect tool. It basically lets you drop in a couple of your competitors, and it shows you sites that link to your competitors that don't link to you. If a site is linking to 2 of your competitors in particular, and they don't link to you, or 2 or more, that's a really good sign that that would be a good target to kind of go after and try to get a link, because maybe it's a journalist, or maybe it's a trade association, or maybe it's something that is in your domain, and so the likelihood that they'll link to you probably is much, much higher. Some other strategies you can leverage. Our company, we're big on what we call guest posts. Guest posts are basically content that you write that you host on other people's sites. So you find, again, like trade associations, local publications, local people that kind of fit your meta-narrative. So if we set our meta-narrative again, it's like how to live a healthy life, for example. Now you have a whole bunch of people that would probably be interested in a guest post, right? And from Google's perspective, all they care about is that there's a link from that site to your site and what the domain authority is of that site, right? So you could position yourself as a wellness expert who happens to sell hot tubs, right? So guest posting is a really great strategy. Another strategy on a local level is going after sponsorships. So if you're familiar with how to use Google, there's a modifier you can add to the beginning of it called in:title, and that tells you to look for content where this particular phrase is in the actual title of that article. So this is an example of all of these sponsors, all the websites that have sponsor pages in Vancouver. Right? And the nice thing about this, again, from Google's perspective, Google doesn't know the difference between a platinum sponsor and a non-sponsor, right? So you don't have to spend $5,000. You could spend $10. You could sponsor the local, Boy Scout trip or Girl Scout trip. Like, all they care about is that there's, again, a link from that domain back to your site. And there's a good chance that a lot of these sites have relatively high domain authority because they're trade associations, they're reputable types of organizations, chambers of commerce, those kinds of things. So sponsorships has kind of become, in the last 2 years, the go-to strategy from a local SEO perspective for driving inbound links. Some other things you can do, create quizzes. Quizzes get lots of social shares and lots of inbound links, so it could be what type of hot tub is best for you. Take our quick quiz to find out. This is a website called Beat Quizzes that makes creating a quiz really, really trivial, where you don't have to know HTML or anything like that. It's kind of like a WYSIWYG drag and drop type of interface, and then you can just embed it on your site. And then the other piece from a local perspective that's really important is what we call citation management. Citations are structured data, usually in the form of directory sites. And what Google cares about is that your name, your address, your phone number, your contact information is consistent across all of those sites. And you'd be surprised. You'd think that that's probably, of course that's the case, but you would be shocked. So for example, I don't know if, using the Cancun Pools example, I don't know if their correct name is Cancun Pools and Spas or Cancun Pools. It shows up different places and different sites, so that would be something to look at, right? So you can do an audit once a year or so. Just make sure that you're up to date on Facebook and Yelp and Yellow Pages and all those kinds of sites. Moz has a local tool that will do that for you. They'll basically make automating that audit really, really easy. That's one other thing to think about. And then 4, increase real estate on the search results page. So it's no secret, Google, if you've been paying attention, Google has been pushing organic results down, and they've been kind of doing things like scraping sites and dropping content directly in line into the search results page, and there's no reason to expect that to not continue. And so one of the pieces of advice I've been giving our companies is to not just think about whether or not you're in position 1, but think about your overall real estate for that particular phrase or that particular thing. A couple strategies for how to do that. This is what are called local pack results. If I do a search like hot tubs near me, Google figures out what that means, they know where I am, they scope it, they show me the results of those pages. We have found 2 things that drive this. One is your domain authority, it turns out. So if you're thinking, hey, I'm creating this content about the health benefits of hot tubs, but I'm a local dealer and I don't care about traffic that's coming from Manhattan or whatever it is, this still will benefit you because your domain authority will go up and it'll increase your rankings and local pack results and things like that. The other variable is those little stars. Google pays a ton of attention to reviews in terms of what shows up in local pack results and which ones don't. And more important from a conversion perspective, customers pay a lot of attention. 87% of customers will not visit a vendor that has low reviews. So you want to do everything in your power to maximize these. So a couple things you can do there. One, at a minimum, if you do get a bad review, respond and show people that are going to come in later that you care about your customer service and you're paying attention to them and all of that kind of stuff. That won't necessarily tweak this person, although sometimes it'll get them to change their review. But you at least want to show that you're responsive. But secondly, you want to be really aggressive about soliciting reviews from people. So maybe people, during checkout, you ask them for their phone number and send them a text message with a link to the place where they would leave a quick review. Maybe you incentivize it somehow with a cover or cleaner or some sort of way to sort of incentivize them in a way that doesn't cost a ton of money for you, but is still valuable to them. It's hard to overstate how important reviews are going to be for you kind of going forward from a local search perspective. And the same goes true with Yelp and some of the, Home Advisor, some of these other kinds of sites as well. You want to pay attention to review management. There are tools out there like review trackers that will aggregate all of the different reviews coming from all the different sites, so that it makes it a little easier for you not having to jump around to different sites. Something to think about there. They're making other investments in their screen real estate too. The little box on the right comes from what is called Google My Business. And in a recent study that Moz did from local SEOs, they believe that the Google My Business functionality is the most important investment to make in 2019 in terms of manipulating local search results. And what they're doing is they're creating a bunch of structured data about you, and it's sort of like almost like a secondary web page in a way. They've folded in content like Google Posts, which is basically like little social media snippets that you can drop in there. They've added Q&A. So what some people are doing is they're having friends or employees or whatever ask questions that they then go in and answer. All of that content is structured and indexed, meaning Google's using the content that's in there and the keywords that are in there and that kind of stuff as a ranking factor. So that's something to think about. It's called Google My Business. And then the other one is, for a lot of the informational content, you're starting to see these little boxes up at the top. Those are called answer boxes. The top strategy we found for that is list posts. Really high correlation. They tend to really like content and prioritize content that they can summarize. So all they basically are doing are taking all those subheaders that you created when you created your ultimate guide to whatever, and they're abstracting them and they're putting that in a little answer box here. So if you can get in the top 3 positions, it's not always position number 1 from organic that they're pulling that from, even if you're in number 3, number 4, but your article is organized in a list post that's easy for Google to scan and compress into this thing. You can still show up even if you're not in position 1. So one more reason to create list posts. So those are 4 strategies from organic search. Make content that Google cares about, optimize that content for rank brain, get links to increase your domain authority, and then increase the real estate on the page. Number 3, nurture with email. This is going to be pretty quick. The gist is, again, we have this funnel. We want to capture permission from people at the top of the funnel so we can push them down lower into consideration set and then ultimately into purchase, right? You can do this. It's kind of lazy in my opinion. There might be some people that want to do this. You'll see a lot with e-commerce. They'll say, hey, sign up for coupons or whatever. But again, we're trying to build trust with people. And if we're going to be making these investments in content, we want to be able to send them content that's relevant to them as well. One of the best strategies actually that we found in terms of increasing the size of your list is to do what we call a content upgrade. Content upgrade, this is one example of the impact of it. We saw a 785% lift in goal conversion rate, meaning the number of emails that we were getting from that particular piece of content. And all a content upgrade is basically give us your, I wrote this big long article about the health benefits of X. Give us your email address and I'm going to give you a piece of bonus content. And kind of counterintuitively, while Google prioritizes length and knowledge as a proxy for knowledgeability, often the best content upgrades are really short things. So they're really, really easy to create. So a real common example that we like to leverage is the cheat sheet. Hey, don't have time to read this whole ultimate guide? Give us your email address, we'll send you a PDF of the cheat sheet, right? That's a real common one. Another one is those tools like quizzes, tools. This could be a really easy thing to do. There was an Evite created a drink calculator like 10 years ago where it says how big is your party, tell us are they light, heavy drinkers or whatever, and then it just spits back how much liquor you should buy, basically. But they have some crazy number of inbound links, and they get a ton of emails from that type of thing. And that's relatively easy to create. There's some tools out there that can create tools like that for you as well. But think about having, at a minimum, you want to have one. You want to build one funnel so that every piece of content has something that is of value to me to collect an email and build a kind of a path to kind of nurture them down through that funnel. But then over time, you want to get to a place where as many pieces of content as possible have a content upgrade. One strategy, if you don't have time or the energy to kind of do all of that, is to go and look at, there's usually some sort of 80-20 correlation between 20% of your pages are driving 80% of your traffic. Prioritize those pages first. So. Number 4, amplify with social. So I think of social in a couple of different ways. One is obviously we've written all this content, now we have stuff to kind of share on social. But why, it's the hardest one for people to understand generally, and sometimes people say, why do I need to make an investment in social? This is the average number of times someone opens or swipes or clicks on their phone in a day. And if you think about your behavior, if you're not in email, what are you probably in? You're probably in Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn or some one of those types of tools, most likely. 80% of our time that is spent on our phone, at least as an adult, is spent inside of social media. So that's where they're hanging out basically all the time, right? It's kind of a problem. The second reason is I think of it as really, really cheap brand marketing. It's the best, cheapest way for you to kind of tell a story and build affinity with your target customer base over time in a way that is targeted, because the targeting tools that they have available to you are incredible, where you're not having to kind of spray and pray, you're actually able to reach exactly the people that you're wanting to reach. So ask yourself the question, where does my persona customer hang out? I don't know for a fact, but I'd be willing to guess that if I were you all and I were prioritizing just a couple of networks, those would probably be the 3 I would go after. Twitter's a really hard one to nail, candidly. LinkedIn, maybe. I actually, if anybody's in, if you think that there's even a remote chance that B2B or reaching executives might be important, and if you can figure out a way to kind of spin your meta narrative in a way where it makes sense for that format, I'm actually the most bullish on LinkedIn as a channel in general, but not necessarily for you all. I actually think Facebook is being underrepresented right now. A lot of people are fleeing Facebook because of some of the issues that they've had last year with privacy. A lot of young people don't necessarily use it, but you know who does use it? Older people with money, and they use it a lot. So I think that when people are leaving, especially if it's 17-year-olds, I don't necessarily care about 17-year-olds because they're not spending any money right now. So that also means that the cost to drive actions, I think, is going to come down on Facebook over time as well. So I would not be surprised if Facebook is actually becoming an increasingly valuable channel in 2019. And then Instagram has a very clear aesthetic to it, and you need to make sure that you're creating content that maps to that aesthetic, and anybody that's used Instagram over any period of time kind of knows what I mean when I say that. But if you look at someone's Facebook page versus their Instagram page, you will usually see a very different sort of visual style, and you want to make sure that you leverage that. But it's a fantastic brand building tool. That company that I showed here, it's a watch company. Literally all of their sales for their first 2 years of business came from Instagram. That was all they did. So even if you think about it as primarily a brand medium, they were doing things like mentioning 15% off their code or whatever. They drove all of their revenue through Instagram for the first 2 years. And then I already mentioned video for YouTube. So a couple strategies. One, obviously promote your site content. One thing that people don't take advantage of enough though is they create an article, they hit publish, they tweet it or whatever once, and then they're done. We found by creating content that is quote unquote evergreen, by which I mean content that's useful now and 2 years from now, you can queue this stuff up and share that same article every month or every 3 months or whatever it is, and you'll see almost exactly the same amount of engagement the first time as you do 6 months later. Because of things like organic reach has gone down, only a percentage of your people are going to see it anyway, and for most people their social media feeds are kind of like a fire hose, right? So they kind of have to be online right when you share. You'll get very similar traction every single time you share it. So there's tools that automate that for you. This is a tool called Edgar that basically lets you create your content pillars and then you load it up with your various tweets or Instagram posts, or Facebook posts, or whatever, and then they'll automate the posting of it for you over a particular cadence, and when it gets down at the bottom of the list, it'll recycle. So if you said, for example, I want 80% of my content to be on social to be this kind of give social type of content, and then 20% of my content to be ask, or I'm actually like talking about a sale or something like that, you can make those kinds of adjustments inside of this tool. So it's really, really powerful. The other thing that we do when we're doing content is we actually test headlines. So we will create a piece of content. We have seen, no joke, a 10x, 20x, 50x difference in click-through rate and social share, which manifests itself in social shares, which manifests itself in your position ranking from an organic perspective, on the basis of the headline. And in fact, there's almost no correlation between whether or not people actually read the article and whether they share it. They just think the headline was interesting, and so I don't know if you ever had that conversation at a party with somebody where they talk about something interesting and you ask them anything about it in more detail and they say, oh, I didn't actually read the article. That happens a lot. So we use this to test headlines. So what that looks like is you create what is called a dark post. So it doesn't show up on your main feed. You target the audience that you're targeting. You let it run for an hour or however long you want to run it for. You take a look at what its impact was, and then you test your other headline. And then the winner, you go back to your original piece of content, you change the headline to the one that won. And now for the rest of time, and that sounds like, oh, hey, that's one more thing I have to do. But if you think about, you put the work in to create this piece of content, and for, call it a 5-minute investment of time to run those 2 ads, for the rest of time, you will see a 10x impact potentially. It's kind of worth doing, right? And I mentioned this before, what if I have multiple personas? What if I want to be able to tell multiple stories to multiple different buyer types? Facebook and Instagram are the best channels to kind of tell that story, right? Because you can create different versions of videos where literally all you change is, hey, are you a 45-year-old woman living in Boise? And then you create a dark post targeted to 45-year-old women living in Boise, right? And then the rest of the content can be exactly the same. I've seen people who've taken that really far and they record 20 versions of the exact same content, and then they just tailor each one of them to their buyer type. If you don't have time, at least create versions that kind of map to those users. But the targeting you can do is ridiculous. So target obviously by geography, really helpful for you, anybody that's kind of scoped locally. Income, marital status, anything you can think of demographically, interest-based targeting. They have these things called, I am in the market to buy a house, right? So you can target people who are about to buy a house, or people who just moved in, right? You can create what are called lookalike audiences. You can upload a file of email addresses of your highest paying customers and most profitable customers, and then Facebook does some magic behind the scenes, and then markets your ads to people that are like them. Pretty powerful. These are routinely our highest performing ads, by the way. You can create a custom audience. So again, we've created that funnel of content to kind of map through the buyer journey. We make heavy use of retargeting. Meaning, someone came to that informational content, not only do I want to drive them further down in the funnel through that email collect, but I also want to use retargeting to drive them in further. So you can do that through here, people who visit specific web pages, right? And then you can queue them up to drive them further down the funnel. You can create special incentives. If somebody got to your checkout page for people that are doing e-commerce and then bailed, you can run special ads just to those people with maybe an incentive to kind of get them over the hump. There's all kinds of things that you can do from a retargeting perspective, so we make heavy use of this. In fact, you can take this to its logical conclusion. This is a guy who had a roommate who, he was a sword swallower who gagged on pills, and he wanted to see if he could target just that guy, and he did it. And his roommate came into his apartment freaking out because he was getting these crazy targeted ads and he didn't realize it was his roommate doing it. But we've done this, so we target CIOs, chief digital officers, things like that. Like we've created ads on AdWords, we've created ads on Facebook that literally target an audience of 1 or an audience of 10. It's a little bit tricky to kind of pull it off, but if anyone's interested, I can tell you how we did it after. Other thing really powerful, I mentioned tools to spy on your competitors, right? Now if you go to a Facebook page of anybody's site, if you look on the left-hand side there at the bottom, there's a section called Info and Ads, and Facebook will actually show you the ads that your competitor is running right now. It won't show you who they're targeting, but it'll at least show you a couple of pieces of the puzzle in terms of the creative, in terms of the headline they use, all of that kind of thing. Super, super powerful. Video, video, video. I mentioned running video is really, really powerful. This was created with a tool called Animoto. Again, shot on someone's iPhone, uses just some little headers, all of that kind of stuff. Fantastic for socials. Facebook is prioritizing it. YouTube is Instagram is prioritizing it. LinkedIn is prioritizing it. Video is where all of these social networks are going all in. And it makes sense if you think about it. If I'm scrolling through my feed, what's going to get me to stop are moving pictures, right? You want to make sure, like they did, that that you have words so it can be played silently. But again, take that 2,000-word article that you wrote. You make 20 points in that article. That's 20 quick videos I can make, right? And now I've got a whole bunch of content I can use on social. This is that site Animoto. Super, super easy to use. We have a guy named Noah. This is probably bad for culture, but we have a guy named Noah who's sort of a Luddite, and we tell him if Noah can do it, anybody can do it. Noah picked this up in 10 minutes. Check-ins and reviews. I mentioned this already for Google, but try to encourage people to check in on your site. Facebook does this neat thing where 24 hours after you checked in somewhere, they follow up with you and ask you to leave a review automatically. So that's kind of interesting. You can encourage people to check in on Instagram as well. Pretty easy to do. Aggressive follow, like, DM. So you can do searches for people based on a geography, or based on hashtag, or based on geography and hashtag. And so if I'm looking for people that live in Boise who have posted Instagram photos, let's say my audience is theoretically younger people who are fitness buffs, or CrossFit people, or whatever it is. You can do a search for those people who are scoped in your neighborhood or area, and follow them, like them, all that kind of stuff. There's tools like Pop Social that will actually automate that for you. So that's just a way to kind of build up your social platform of people that are potentially potential buyers. And then go after micro-influencers. These are maybe bloggers that are in your area that fit your meta-narrative, or people that have a social profile that are in your area that maybe fit your meta-narrative. You can do things like what we call share for shares. You can partner with complementary brands that are complementary to your meta-narrative and say, hey, I'll share on my Facebook page and my Instagram feed if you do a share for us, and kind of do a trade-off that way. Some people have done things like Instagram pods where they kind of collectively promote each other. People have done things like an Instagram takeover where they give another brand or an influencer access to their page for the day. There's a bunch of different ways that you can kind of leverage that. But again, it's a much harder thing to do if all we are is the hot tub people. But if we are the healthy lifestyle people or whatever it is, that becomes a lot easier to do. So those are a couple strategies from a social perspective. And then lastly, converting with paid. So paid ads, you're probably familiar with. You've got the ones on the left. You've got the product listings on the right from an e-commerce perspective. They're doing these actually lead gen ads on the right. They're piloting those in a couple different verticals. They haven't done hot tubs yet, but they've done like plumbers, electricians, carpenters. It's probably coming. So they're trying to take over like Yelp and Home Advisor and those kinds of folks. Couple of things, a couple benefits to it. You can start running ads immediately. You get to control every single aspect of it, so it's really powerful. And then they're an intent-based channel, meaning these are people that I can go after in the lower parts of my funnel, right? People that are actually in the market to buy today. It used to be that it was entirely keyword-based. They've layered in demographics. So you can, for example, if I'm searching for hot tubs, but I'm 17 years old and I make less than $10,000, you probably don't want your ad to show, right? You want to show for people that are actually in the market to potentially buy. So they've allowed you to start layering in demographic, income-based targeting, things like that. 3 tips to get the most out of AdWords, or Google Ads. 1, pay attention to quality score. Google cares a lot about the quality of their paid ads, just like they care a lot about the quality of their organic ads. These are the variables that impact that. They use click-through rate on the ad as a proxy for the quality of that ad. Meaning, if you click through on it, it must have been relevant to what you were searching for, right? So the same principles that we talked about for rank brain rather, apply here too. Quality score matters a lot. A lot of people think that if you just pay the most money, that's how you get into position 1. That's not exactly true. They actually take the amount that you're willing to pay, they multiply it by your quality score, just on a scale of 1 to 10, and that's how they determine your ad rank. So you can spend, if you write better ads that get a higher click-through rate and you get a higher quality score, you can get in a higher position than your competitors, even if they're spending more money or offering to spend more money. The position on the page has a big impact on click-through rate, as you can see. Position 1 is almost a 6% click-through rate, tapers off from there, so you want to be in those top couple results. Has a big impact in terms of cost per click. So a higher quality score is generally correlated with as much as a 50% cheaper cost per click, and it drives down your cost per action considerably. This is across all industry verticals, but the difference between a quality score of 2 and a quality score of 10, as you can see, is material in terms of driving a cost per conversion or cost per action. So how do we do that? One is we write better ads, right? The other one is we structure our campaigns. So Google makes it, they've created a platform that makes it easier for you to manage all of these ads that you're going to be creating. And they have a campaign, and then they have an ad group, and then they suggest lumping related keywords into the same ad group. Does that make sense? So they say somewhere between like 6 and 20 keywords within an ad group. Smart advertisers have taken that to its logical conclusion and said, well, and what they mean by that is those 5 keywords there in the ad group on the left are all going to see the exact same ad. Smart advertisers have taken that to its logical conclusion, and they've created what they call single keyword ad groups, where they literally create an ad that is just for that one keyword, because that maximizes my click-through rate, it maximizes the ad text relevance, maximizes the quality score. That can be a little bit of a pain in the neck to manage, though, if you've got a lot of ads running or a lot of keywords you're going after. So this is normally where people kind of settle, and this is what I recommend if you're doing this at any sort of scale, is it's called an alpha-beta strategy. You use a beta campaign, you look for phrases or types of phrases that are potentially working really well for you, and then the ones that work really well, you break off into their own ad group and you manage it that way. And again, you'll probably see sort of an 80-20 thing here too, where 20% of your keywords are going to drive 80% of your revenue that way. And then the last one is you want to make sure that you're monitoring these ads and being really aggressive. It's really easy to waste money on AdWords if you're not monitoring it and paying a lot of attention. A couple things, again, learn from your competitors. This is that tool, SEMrush. It shows you, for a competitor, the phrases that they're going after, and it actually will show you the exact ad text that they're using for those keywords. So again, you don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel. You can learn what's worked and what's not. If it's run for a really long time, odds are it's a good ad. You don't want to just trust that blindly, though, because maybe they're not managing it, and it's running because they're not paying attention. But again, a lot of insight there. And then the other thing is, people tend to, ads that are, or phrases that are competitive tend to consolidate over time where people start to just ape each other and have the exact same ad text. This is a search results page for divorce lawyers, and they all kind of say the exact same thing, basically. This firm went a different direction, saw a 20% click-through rate on their ad text, which is bananas, but they zigged when other people were zagging. So if there's an opportunity on a particular phrase, it might be something to kind of go after. Google does have tools that will make this easier for you. This is called dynamic keyword insertion. You just want to be careful, because if you're not paying attention, this is an example from eBay, they'll just drop in a whole bunch of stuff there, so you want to be careful there. So those are 3 strategies on that. Always test more than one version of your ad, kill anything with a less than 2% click-through rate, and then regularly scrub what are called negative keywords. Negative keywords are things where if I type in free hot tubs, for example, you want to eliminate the word free and not show up for that kind of thing. So that's it. Those are the 3 strategies for increasing paid. Those are the 5 strategies for building a marketing channel that are a marketing machine. So create great content, map it across the entire funnel, optimize it for search, amplify with social, nurture with email and retargeting, and then convert with paid. Any questions? Wasn't too bad, was an hour. Yeah.
You mentioned that the posts have to be a little bit longer.
Yes.
Yeah. Does Google really care about the exact content? And Is it just to actually get organic?
So yes and no. So you will probably be able to rank in the short term by having an article that's poorly written but long and includes all of your keywords in it. But they've tried to address that with that rank brain algorithm because they see if I come to the site and then I bounce right away because this is garbage, they're going to figure that out over time. So in the short term, you might see a boost, but they'll figure it out eventually, and you'll probably start to get pushed down in the page as a result of that.
And then there's statistics on how long a customer actually spends on the page. So with an article that's 1,000+ words, does the customer actually read it?
It depends. Yeah, so not always, but and it depends on how you've written it. So if it's a good article, if it's broken up logically and into small kind of chunks that make it easy to scan, that dramatically increases the likelihood that they stick around. So that's that dwell time metric. They're assuming that the longer that you're spending on the site, odds are you're probably reading the content versus just hitting the back button right away.
On those the posts that you write,
Yeah.
if you change small amounts of it, can you fool that or not?
If you change small, sorry.
Sorry. If you change small amounts of the content
Yeah.
of those posts,
Yeah.
can you fool things like rank brain to, you know, to reintroduce you back up top?
Yeah, so that's actually a strategy. There is a variable that the algorithm takes into consideration called freshness. And so Google likes sites that are being regularly updated. So a common strategy that people are doing, and there's two ways to do it. One is if you go into your analytics and you see an article that, for example, is on page 2 and you want to get it to bump up, you go back in and you rewrite it or you expand upon it or you add some images or whatever, and then you republish it. Google will notice that, and sometimes that'll increase your ranking. The other thing that people will often do is they'll come in, and if you've written this ultimate guide to whatever, they'll go in once a year and they'll update it. And then I don't know if you saw in the swipe file, there was one example of updated for 2018 in the title. Google pays attention to that because people pay attention to that. They actually do show when an article was published or when it was updated in the search results, and they have noticed a correlation with users in terms of recency.
And is it more important you can change the headings within that paragraph or the body content?
The heading, so in terms of order of preference, in terms of where you should put your keywords, what is called the title tag is the most important, and that is not the title that's visible on the web page. That's actually the title in the code that shows up on the Google search results page. That one's most important. Then probably the title on your actual page, which is that H1 tag, and then the subheads, are more important than body copy. But they do want to see it in body copy too. Other questions? Yeah. We need a mic up. There we go.
Yeah, and just want to get your intake on potentially geofencing. We're starting to get.
Can you say that again?
I want to get your input on geofencing.
Yeah.
Facebook, we're starting to get a lot more. That's been kind of thrown around, and we're interested in it. I just want to get your intake on.
Yeah, so I mean, from a paid perspective, we try to scope everything to be geo-specific because we don't mind necessarily if people are coming to our informational content from outside because they might link to it, they might share it on social. Those are all ranking signals, even if they're not necessarily a buyer. It doesn't bother me that much. There are things that you can do to geo-modify. So again, if my meta-narrative was I want to live a healthy life and I'm in Jacksonville, I might say like the 10 best places, the 10 best gyms in Jacksonville, right? And I write like a big write-up about them. Making them geo-specific will increase, it'll make it more relevant to your audience, obviously. But then from a paid perspective, every single thing that we do from a paid perspective, if we're only operating in local markets, we will always add a geo-modifier on it to make sure that we're only showing our ad to, or our social post or whatever, to people that are actually in that market. Anytime we're going to spend money, we make sure we scope it locally. I don't know if that answers that question.
You guys also, I guess, I've learned a little bit about geofencing competitors, where you can potentially say, people go to my competitor's store, I want to target a specific customer.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. I haven't done a ton of that, but try it. I don't know. I mean, yeah, you can definitely you can run ads by any geography. It doesn't have to specifically be the border around your trading market. It could be your competitor. There's no reason why you couldn't do that. That's an interesting idea. Yeah, you can get really well. So when they're physically in the store, you're wanting to geofence them?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it seems like you would, in order for that to be effective, you would probably need to have their phone number already so that you can, the only channel I could think of that would really work with that would be like SMS or text, where I'm interrupting them, because odds are if I'm in your store, I'm not simultaneously chilling out on Facebook, right? And so that ad probably wouldn't even if you were showing that ad, it wouldn't really matter to me. So you would probably need to have some way to interrupt them using phone or text or SMS or something like that. The other thing that you should probably keep in mind is that that tactic probably would work briefly, but then odds are they would tell their rep that, hey, did you know that? And then they might be aware of it now, and now they're going to do the same thing. So from a reverse engineering, protectability, moat building perspective, where it's hard for my competitor to keep what I'm doing, that would probably be relatively low on that, just because it is so intrusive. Odds are it would be something worth commenting on as a potential shocker. So, thanks.
Anyone who's got a question, just throw up their hands and we'll get the mic over to you.
I like the idea, though. We try to be as aggressive as we can, so in general.
I was just going to reply to what he was talking about. It's actually a company that came to us and said that they buy those IP addresses from phones, and that they're doing exactly what you're talking about, and they're actually saying that guerrilla marketing, where when they're in that location of a competitor, that they will send blast a sale promotion from your company. So it is being done.
Interesting.
More questions?
I didn't. Is there value to outbound links? Is there value to outbound links?
Meaning you linking to other people? In the sense that Google cares about it, what's called a natural link profile they do. They pay a lot of attention to things that signal that you're trying to manipulate the search engine results. And so if your website is all just inbound and you're not linking to anybody, that's a problem. The other thing is, I mentioned that Google wants to show the best result. Length of content is the best way. Knowledgeability or relevance is another. And one proxy that they use for that is they look for the links that you link out to within your content, and are you linking to reputable sites? So if I reference a study on the health benefits of something, and I'm linking out to the, I don't know, what's the federal, something health and safety, something like that. If I'm linking out to like a study like that that's reputable, that's a signal to them. So like when we write an article for our consulting company, we're regularly linking out to like Harvard Business Review, McKinsey, things like that. So yes, to a degree. I wouldn't, it's not the most important thing. I think you had one and not anymore. Anybody else?
Some more questions? Might as well take advantage of his expertise while he's here with us for another 10 minutes. Perfect. I was just a little unclear when you mentioned the dark post to try to maximize the headline. Was that done in Facebook, or is that done in that Meet Edgar software?
That's done inside of Facebook's ad manager. And so what we'll do is we'll publish an article on our website. We'll create an ad unit to drive people to that article on that website, but we'll test 2 different titles inside of the ad unit. And then the ad unit that wins, we then go back to the website and change the title to the winning ad. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
And we call it a dark post because it doesn't show up on your main Facebook page. It only shows up to people that fit the targeting criteria that you used.
I was just going to respond to this lady's question you had way earlier when you were asking about does it help to respond to people's reviews. And I was told by people that do our SEO work that it absolutely does help.
Yeah.
That they see when you reply, Google sees that, and they can do better ranking.
Yep.
So it does.
Yep.
Some more questions?
If you have other questions later, you can always email me. I'm very happy to respond to folks. My email is just sean.johnson@gmail.com. But more than happy to provide feedback, or if you say, hey, can you check out this landing page looks great, or whatever. As long as you give me a little bit of grace in terms of how long it takes me to respond, more than happy to answer questions. Sounds like a good question.
Is it Sean, S-E-A-N?
That's right, Sean.Johnson@gmail.com. SEAN.Johnson.
J-O-H-N.
Correct. But yeah, if you don't have any other questions, I really appreciate you having me here.
My question was, when you do videos, do you recommend a time increment, like 15-second or 30-second?
Yeah, it depends on the platform. YouTube can be longer. Facebook and Instagram, you probably want to be short. In fact, Instagram enforces constraints on you in terms of how long they can be. But the other thing that you can do is you can leverage like live video, like on Instagram and Facebook, and they prioritize that in their newsfeed a lot. And so you can do a live video and then have it recorded to post later on. Basically, anytime, as a general rule of thumb, we try to find that we look for people when we're looking for people to manage social, or we're looking for people to manage organic, people who are on top of every single time they come out with a new ad unit or a new format or something like that, to go all in on it and see if it works or doesn't work, because usually when they roll out something new, they prioritize it and they really want it to be successful. And so, again, as you're looking for people to hire, again, if you're looking for somebody from a social perspective and you ask them what their strategy is, and they say, I create an editorial calendar and I tweet once a day or something like that, that's probably not great. You want to try to drill down and see what are some of the things that they're doing. What are your thoughts on video, for example, and things like that, and see kind of what they're trying to do there. But, yeah.
Is it worth enabling the pixel in the Facebook?
It is, yes. The question was, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, how effective is it and what it actually does?
Critically important. So the question was about the Facebook pixel, and the Facebook pixel is the first step in a retargeting campaign. In other words, in order for Facebook to know what pages you visited on a particular site, that site has to have the Facebook pixel installed. That's how Facebook tracks you. And again, there's issues around that from like a privacy perspective and things like that. But if you're wanting to leverage retargeting, that's the very first step that you have to do, is drop the Facebook pixel on there. It's a copy and paste thing. And now Facebook will start tracking all of the visits and where the pages that they visit and all of that kind of stuff. And that'll be how you say, run this ad to people who visited this page, run this ad to people who visited this page, that kind of thing.
Can you do that through Business Manager?
You do that, you grab that through Ad Manager, yeah, that's an issue.
So we've got that kind of 3 different pages, but they're all on Business Manager.
Yep.
So
because you're managing multiple.
yeah. So will they have different codes? Or
They will. That's a good question. I don't know.
I think that's what I'm having.
They might. In fact, I bet that they do, because you're wanting to track different properties. Yeah. So that otherwise it would aggregate all that. Yeah. So, that's a good one. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. Glad you shared.